There's a certain kind of pain that doesn't scream. It lingers, quiet, confusing. And if you've ever loved someone who kept pulling away every time you tried to get close, you know exactly what I mean. You're not asking for too much. You just want connection, presence, something real to hold on to. But with them, it felt like the closer you got, the faster they disappeared. And maybe you've started to wonder, is it you? Did you push too hard? Or are they simply incapable of loving you back? But what if the answer isn't in blame, but in the dynamic itself? Because beneath every painful breakup, there's a pattern, not always obvious, not always spoken, but always there, shaping how love was given and how it was lost. In today's video, we're going to uncover that pattern. We'll break down the emotional push and pull between the anxious and the avoidant. And more importantly, I'll show you the hidden truth that most people completely miss about avoidant exes. Truths that could change the way you see not just them, but yourself. So if you've been left in silence, if you're tired of overthinking their distance, or if you just want to understand what really happened underneath it all, this is for you. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear might hurt a little, but it will also heal. And if this message resonates with something real in you, do me a favor, like this video, subscribe to Stoic Station, and turn on notifications. This isn't just content, it's a space for men like you who are ready to grow through what others run from. Now let's begin. Breakups don't just end relationships, they expose patterns. Deep, often invisible patterns that were shaping the connection long before things fell apart. And when you begin to look closely, you'll see a specific pattern that shows up more than any other. One partner who fears being left, and one who fears being overwhelmed. In clinical terms, it's the anxious attachment style colliding with the avoidant one. The anxious partner reaches out, chases, pleads for closeness. The avoidant one pulls back, withdraws, sometimes disappears entirely. One moves in, the other moves away. It looks like contradiction, but it's actually a perfect storm of misaligned survival strategies. There are 4 attachment styles: secure, anxious, avoidant, and disorganized. But when it comes to painful separations, the anxious-avoidant dynamic is the one that leaves the deepest scars. Not because one person is wrong and the other is right, but because their needs trigger each other in the most emotional way. And here's what most people never stop to realize. Both people are in pain. You may be the one pacing, crying, asking questions that never get answered, but they're hurting too. Just differently, quieter, more internally. You break down externally. They shut down completely. They don't call, and you assume they're fine. But what you see as coldness is often just fear disguised as distance. Silence is their safety. They fear closeness the way you fear abandonment. And if that sounds strange, take a breath. Because it's the kind of truth that doesn't just shift your perspective, it cuts deep. It's not that you were too much or that they were heartless. You were just two people dancing to opposite rhythms of survival. You wanted connection to feel safe. They needed space to feel safe. And neither of you knew how to say that without sounding like you were blaming each other. But when you see it for what it really is, you stop labeling yourself as needy. You stop seeing them as cruel. You understand that your emotional storms came from a place of desperation, and theirs from a place of fear. That understanding softens things, not because the pain goes away, but because you finally stop personalizing their distance. And that's where strength begins, not in forcing reconciliation, but in learning to read the emotional language that was always there, hidden beneath the surface. Avoidants are often misunderstood. They come across as independent, composed, even emotionally detached. But that outer control masks an inner confusion. They don't avoid love because they don't want it. They avoid it because they don't know how to handle it once it becomes real. They carry independence like a shield. They need space when things get emotionally intense. They withdraw from conflict. They change the subject when things get serious. And when closeness demands vulnerability, they disappear, physically or emotionally. Not because they don't care, but because caring feels unsafe. It's easy to mistake this for coldness, to assume they never loved you, to tell yourself they moved on because you weren't enough. But here's the emotional twist you didn't see coming. Avoidants want love. They crave connection, just not in the way you're used to recognizing it. They long to hold someone, to be seen, to feel that deep emotional safety, but the moment it arrives, their defenses flare. It's not that they don't feel love, it's that love, when it becomes real and close, awakens old patterns of fear. They panic, they freeze, they shut down. They want to just hold you so bad, but it's like there's just a wall they can't get over. That wall isn't about you. It's not a reflection of your worth or your efforts. It's something that was built long before you came into the picture. And while it's heartbreaking to be on the other side of that wall, banging your hands against it, hoping for a breakthrough, it's not something you can tear down with force. The more you push, the stronger the resistance becomes. So many people carry resentment for an avoidant ex, and I understand why. It feels like betrayal, like emotional abandonment. But when you come to see what's truly underneath it all, something changes. Resentment turns into insight. Anger becomes clarity. You realize they weren't trying to hurt you. They were just trying to protect themselves in the only way they knew how. And if you're able to see that, something inside you shifts. You stop trying to win them back out of desperation, and you start rising, slowly, steadily, into the version of yourself that doesn't chase, but simply understands. This is the beginning of true emotional leadership, when you no longer take their silence personally, and you start taking your own healing seriously. Because now you're not just reacting to their withdrawal, you're reading it, you're interpreting it with empathy, not fear. And from that place, you can finally decide, not whether they'll come back, but whether you'll be the person worth returning to. Once you begin to understand the avoidant attachment style, you stop asking why they left and start asking what their silence is really made of. It's not always rejection. In many cases, it's regulation. When an avoidant pulls away, they aren't trying to destroy the relationship. They're trying to breathe inside it. And because they haven't learned how to do that while staying connected, they choose distance. They leave not because they stop loving you, but because being close to you, being emotionally seen by you, felt overwhelming. That's something most people miss. You think their exit means you didn't matter. But for the avoidant, leaving often isn't about you at all. It's about trying to quiet something inside them that suddenly felt unsafe. It's about resetting their nervous system by stepping away from the very thing they care about. So they go. And for a while it feels right to them. Distance gives them back a sense of control. It gives them clarity, or at least that's what they tell themselves. But the real shift happens when the stillness sets in. That moment after the dust settles, when the silence is no longer peaceful, it's hollow. At first it might feel like relief. They've escaped the intensity, the emotional weight, the pressure, but relief is short-lived. Because eventually they start to notice the absence, not just of you, but of something deeper, the comfort, the meaning, the mirror you held up that reminded them of who they were when they were loved. That's when the doubt creeps in. Not dramatically, not all at once, but in fragments, in quiet, unspoken questions, in memories that return when they least expect. And what they realize, sometimes painfully, is that what they walked away from wasn't the problem. The closeness wasn't the danger. Their own inability to stay in it was. Most avoidants do come back, but they rarely come back with grand gestures. Don't expect a romantic monologue or a sudden confession of guilt. It's usually subtle. A like on a post. A "Hey, how have you been?" message that feels casual on the surface but is full of hesitation underneath. It's a breadcrumb, a signal, a way of saying, "I'm still here, are you?" And this is where your role, if you're the anxious one, becomes critical. You've probably spent days, weeks, maybe even months, replaying every word, every shift in their tone, every look that felt distant. That's how anxious attachment works. It fixates, it loops, it begs to understand what went wrong so it can make it right. But here's the paradox that every anxious partner must face. The more you try to fix it, the more you push them away. Your effort, your urgency, your intensity, it doesn't draw them in. It activates their fear again. It reminds them of what felt suffocating. You actually need to be more cautious and slow, not because you're weak, but because that kind of patience takes an extraordinary amount of strength. So when your mind screams, "Reach out, say something, just get closure," your soul has to whisper, "No, be still." This isn't about going silent out of anger. It's not about punishing them. It's about rising above the dynamic that broke you. It's about letting your stillness speak in a way words never could. Let your silence say, "I'm no longer trying to convince you. I'm becoming whole without you." And when they do reach out, as many avoidants eventually do, your response will set the tone. Don't interrogate. Don't pounce on the moment like it's your one shot at salvation. Don't ask about the breakup, or if they're seeing someone, or what the message really means. Just breathe. Be light. Be warm. Be present. But grounded. Because the anxious energy that once overwhelmed them, you've replaced it with calm, with composure, with a presence that says, "You don't need to run anymore. I'm no longer chasing. I'm just standing still." And that's magnetic. That's powerful. That's peace. This shift doesn't just affect the other person. It changes you. It forces you to step into emotional adulthood. It teaches you that healing isn't about getting someone back. It's about getting you back. If you can hold this energy, not just for a day, but through every wave of doubt that tries to pull you under, you'll create something new. A space where an avoidant can return without fear, and where you can receive them, not as the person who lost them, but as the person who outgrew the need to cling. And when they sense that shift, when they no longer feel like they're being pulled into something heavy, they don't resist. They lean in. And not because you begged, but because your strength called them home. There comes a moment in this process, quiet but unmistakable, when you realize that no matter how deeply you care, no matter how much you try to understand them, you cannot change your ex. You cannot rearrange their wiring, fix their fears, or rewrite the way they learned to protect themselves from intimacy. And once you accept that truth, something powerful happens. The weight that was never yours to carry begins to fall away. You can't change them, but you can change the dance. You can stop feeding the cycle. Every time you feel the urge to reach out just to ease your own anxiety, pause. Every time you want them to say something to reassure you, turn inward instead. These are not moments of suppression, they're moments of personal evolution. You're not silencing yourself, you're strengthening yourself. There's a version of you that existed before the emotional chaos, before the pattern of chasing someone who kept stepping back. That version of you wasn't desperate. He wasn't lost in their silence. He had roots. He had a rhythm that wasn't dictated by another person's availability. Reclaim him, not through force, but through simple, steady shifts. Rebuild your mornings. Recommit to the values you once lived by. Stop waiting for their attention to feel alive again. Make your own presence the one that lights the room. Let your life speak louder than your longing, because something shifts when you stop orbiting around them. Something subtle but undeniable. At first they don't know what to make of it. They're used to you being the one who reaches, the one who explains, the one who tries. But now, you're still. You're grounded. You're not trying to prove your worth. You're showing it in the way you live, the way you carry yourself. And avoidants notice that. When the energy shifts, they stop running. They start watching. Not because you begged, but because your energy has become safe, non-threatening, quietly magnetic. But the story doesn't end when they come back. If they return, and many do, that's not the victory. That's the beginning of a new test, because the most dangerous thing you can do at that point is slip back into the old rhythm. If you begin to chase again, if you lose your grounding the moment they show you affection, if you overgive, over-explain, or overcommit just to avoid losing them, you recreate the very dynamic that broke things in the first place. And it will break again. The goal isn't just reconnection, it's reinvention, not of who they are, but of how you respond. If you give them space, they're more likely to come back. But if you pressure them, even with the best intentions, they will retreat into the same fears that made them leave before. Let them lead the pace. You stay rooted. Hold your independence close, even when intimacy re-enters the room. Don't become emotionally homeless again, living inside their presence, their messages, their moods. Stay whole, stay balanced. You're no longer the man who's trying to survive the silence. You're the man who grew through it. And when they sense that shift, when they feel that your love no longer comes with pressure, that your presence no longer asks them to be someone they're not, something opens. Because now they're not returning to the same version of you they left. They're returning to someone stronger, calmer, softer, but unshakable. And that kind of presence, that's the kind they don't run from. That's the kind they stay for. What you've just walked through isn't a story about winning someone back. It's about seeing clearly, finally, the patterns that were shaping you long before the breakup ever happened. It's about realizing that what hurt most wasn't just their distance. It was how much of yourself you lost trying to close that distance. You saw how your need for closeness collided with their need for space. You felt the storm, the push, the pull, the silence. But instead of letting it define you, you slowed down long enough to study it, to listen to it, to lead yourself through it. This journey wasn't about mastering tactics. It was about mastering awareness. It was about recognizing that you can't fix someone's fear of intimacy, but you can stop making their fear the compass of your life. And in doing so, you become the kind of man who's no longer thrown off course by someone else's silence. Because real strength is quiet. It's measured in restraint. It's shown in the way you don't flinch when things get uncomfortable. The moment you stopped reacting and started responding was the moment you stopped being the one who was left behind and became the one who rose ahead. That's what this has always been about. Not closure, not control, not even reconnection, but clarity. And here's the truth you walk away with. You're not just worthy of love. You're worthy of love that doesn't require you to abandon yourself to keep it. So the next time someone pulls away, don't chase. Don't panic. Don't fold into the fear that you're too much or not enough. Instead, stand still. Stand tall. Let them feel your absence with the same gravity they once felt your presence. Because when you stop orbiting around someone else's uncertainty, you become the gravity they quietly start circling back to. Not because you needed them to return, but because you became the man who no longer needed to be rescued. And that is who you were always meant to be. If something in this message stayed with you, let it guide your next step. Leave a comment. I read every single one, and your story matters here, truly. If you felt even a moment of clarity, of strength in what we shared, then like this video, subscribe to Stoic Station, and turn on notifications so you never miss what's next. This journey? It's not about chasing answers. It's about becoming the man who no longer needs to. I'll see you in the next chapter. Until then, stay steady.